Why don't you have a screen?
It did have a screen. There it is.
You are hiding from me.
Yes, that's why I showed up to the meeting early.
Oh, yeah, and I was working, which is why I showed up to the meeting late.
hmm hmm
But I shipped. Remember how I said I wasn't sure what I was going to get out the door? I
Yeah,
got the Miata report out the door,
nice. Well done.
or at least part of it. Um, yeah. This is okay. So, I've been thinking that I want to incorporate more of um, my actual work product into our um, witchamathizzle, into our household mojos, because that's what
Mhm.
witchamathizzle means.
Mhm.
If you look it up in the dictionary, that's what you'll find, and it'll be a picture of me wearing glasses.
That's what I thought.
So, what I want to make is a uh, parenting report. Because one of
Yeah.
the things that I noticed, sorry, I just launched in, but one of the things that I noticed is there's a lot of chatter, right? So my aunt was hitting me up and she was like sending me political things, and I was just like, casual response. Oh well, it's hard out here, for the working class, and well, taxing the rich isn't always the best idea, and well, people do want to live in this. Like so I'm providing these sort of reasoned responses, and what?
No, I was just agreeing with you. I was like, yes.
And and she said something that was really heartwarming, back from my time as a financial advisor, and she was just like, that um, analysis and recommendation that you made for me back in the day is what got my finances back on track, and like allowed me to purchase my house, and got us into this position, and that's exactly what I taught my son, and like now he's got all this financial success, and I was just like, awesome. And that was what, like 15
Back
years
to
ago.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's nice to hear that, especially because it's my aunt, right? And she's like older, and that's all it took was just kind of knowing the right um places to tap, and 10, 15 years later, she's in, the best economic position she's been in. So that was a really nice thing for me. And so she had been sending me these kind of political messages or whatever on Facebook, and I was thinking, you know I want to be able to connect the dots from, what are all of these macro things that we're hearing about on the news, to, okay, well, cool. Now, what do I do with my kids, right? Like, what do I teach the kid? There's been this, talk about debt cycle, and then, there's the AI stuff going on, and there's all this, global geopolitics happening. Um, are we in a cold war with China? Like, what does it mean? What does it mean?
There's many things.
Yeah. And so one of the things we're always talking about is internal locus of control. So how do you move from the things that I don't have any impact over to the things that I can actively control in my life? So I'm not in a place of um, constant frustration or anxiety. And that's what we talk about when I hear something in the news, or like, because you know me, I get on that nerdy news,
Mhm.
and I'm like on the US GAL website, the Department of Government Accountability, the Government Accountability Office,
I love it.
you know. And so like that's what I'm tracking on Instagram, and like I'll go and hit up their data sets and like check out their reports.
Right?
Um,
That's what the
and
government's up to.
Right. And at the same time, like I had this thought because we were doing our voting pamphlet the other day, and I said, shit, how many people go over the state's finances or the country's finances
How
and
many
just
people even know how to look that up?
right? And I checked YouTube for this too, and like there was a video like 10 years ago or something that talks about how to read a government financial statement as opposed to like a business statement. And so I was like geeking out on that. I was like, "Oh, this is a really great video."
That is a really
Like
great
one of
video.
7 people who liked that video or who
Right.
watched it.
Publish
Um,
more content like this, man.
right? So that's it, right? And we were having a conversation on Friday about authors, right? And why the best fiction versus nonfiction authors, the best fiction authors make 10 times more, right? The top five fiction authors make 10 times more than the top five nonfiction authors. Well, what
Which,
is that for? Where is it? And the nonfiction authors, the majority of their money is coming from like speaking engagements. So
yeah,
why is that?
because people are resistant to learning.
Yeah.
They
People
just
want
want
fun more than they want to learn some shit.
yeah, they want escapism more than realism.
Yeah. And so it's like, my life is hard already. Like, give me something I can turn my brain off to. And I get that. That's why I go and I'm still playing, what is it, 2003 Diablo 3 came out in 20 or 2000, maybe it was 2002. I think I played that summer of 2002.
Nice.
Um,
Diablo 3.
but that's my game because it's a flow state game. You can just like grind, level up. It's not so difficult as to be upsetting, and it's not so easy as to be that you can just like pass out, but I can listen to an audiobook while I play. So
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Okay. Why
So
did I
you've
think
been playing,
20?
I don't know, but you've been playing that game for what does that mean?
13
Going
years?
on 13, I would say going on 15 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many
Um
times do you think you've beaten it?
Oh God. Every season I beat it a couple of times.
I
Like
know, so you've
I
got to be up over 100.
drills build skills, baby.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
But that's one of the concepts that we're trying to integrate into our business and into the products that we create and into the experiences is trying to make them flow state. And this is the differentiated model from how I think companies used to be to how companies are now is they use the casino model, which creates intermittent reward, which creates more consistent engagement because you're making junkies, right? And you know that the junkie is going to come back for more. Whereas a growth model, right, like the flow state model, is harder for you to make, right? It's harder for the company to make that, right? Why make broccoli seed extract when you can make crack cocaine? You're gonna get more sales. You know, if you try to move a brick, you know, that's gonna that's gonna sell a lot faster and a lot more than 1,000 than like bags of broccoli.
Which is,
Let's be honest,
it's
right?
madness.
And this is one of those things that you sort of learn from marketing is you got vitamins and painkillers, and they literally tell you don't buy or don't make vitamins, make painkillers because The only people that buy vitamins are gym bros. So how do we get so my frustration, and this is what I'm always saying, is I'm the broccoli salesman because I want people to buy vitamins, but that's a really small market. And that's why we don't make a whole lot of like, subs at this point. One, nobody knows that we exist because we're not doing any outreach efforts. But at the same time, um, it's a smaller market for people who want education than people who want entertainment. Everybody wants entertainment, right? And that was what happened. Is Friday we had our Kid Connects, and I looked at the journal, and it's the last day of school before the winter break, and they're like freedom, and I was like, have you been reading Warrior Kid? Are you reading what Jocko was saying? And he says discipline equals freedom, not leaving school.
I know. They were like, oh, shoot.
I'm sorry. I really meant to learn. I don't want to stop learning. I was like, no, man. I'm fucking with you.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, like, I I want to be a lifelong learner. I'm going to continue to learn till the day I die. And I think what most people do is they're like, okay, I've gotten comfortable at this thing and I
Yeah.
want to just stay in my lane and then like practice and get like incrementally better at the thing that I know I can do.
Yeah.
But when you stay in your comfort zone shrinks. And so you have a lot of people that are frustrated about the job market. And well, we look at this statistic in two different ways, right? So if 10% of the population of the United States is covering 50% of the economy, then that means 90% is covering the other 50%. So one way we could interpret this data is, oh, those rich people, and their Richie McRichersons, are out there buying up all the stuff and, raising the prices. And this is how
Right?
Idahoans were like when they're like, all these Californians moving here and increasing all our prices and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So you can get mad at that eat the rich um, concept, or you can say 90% of the population is not producing very much of anything.
Also accurate.
And it's not one or the other, it's both.
Yes.
So it's creating a perpetuating cycle where um, the smaller number of people are able to participate in the economy, right? And purchase things. And
Mhm.
so the business world says, okay, well, we'll go to where the money is. We'll go to where the opportunity is. And if all the
Mhm.
opportunity is in that 10%, they don't have any incentive to sell to the 90.
Right? They're like, we're not going to get anything out of that. So we're going to go where, like you said, where all the opportunity is.
Right. So what is this from? It's from people not continuing to expand their skill set and wanting entertainment. And entertainment has just gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And that's why there's so much slop. It's because you can produce anything you want in the entertainment space for dirt cheap, and most of it's crap. So now all the signal, all the really, really good entertainment is obscure, or it's like, you know, it's that 90-10. And
Yeah.
so in entertainment, it tends to be more like 95-5, right? The 5% at the top get 95% of the gains, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you, and now here I'm going to use the socialist where how do you distribute or how do you change the distribution so that more of the population can contribute to the economy? And if you are an individual parent, right? how do you now look at all of these macroeconomic forces that are at play? And instead of just like freaking out, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and blah, unemployment, and I can't get a job. Like, what do you do? And the answer is, go ahead, go ahead.
You say, no, yeah, what do you do? Tell us.
You just be a business.
Oh, yes.
You're welcome. Thank you. That'll be 9.99.99. Um, but this is okay. So I got a mentee meeting tomorrow, and this kid's a computer scientist, or he's studying computer science. He's a sophomore, at my alma mater, and so uh, this is essentially what I'm telling him to do is okay, cool. You want to get into data, and that's how we got paired because that's what I do. And so what do you have to do? The big thing I'm saying is there's a hierarchy, right? It's um, you know, portfolio beats resume and network beats portfolio. So what does that actually mean in terms of marketing, right? And this is what you'll hear if you just like go into the oh God, what the digital marketer space, you'll hear offer creation. Oh, you got to create a better offer. Oh, you got to get offer creator. Oh, this is the offer king. Like people love this word offer, but it is truly valid. And what is an offer? It's basically a trade agreement. If I give you X, then I get Y, right?
Yeah,
That's the offer. And the why that I get is generally a price, but this could be for any kind of negotiation, right? You know,
yeah,
I will give you 10 cows and you can have my daughter. That's back in the day. That's how they did it, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah.
So, um, when you are looking at the job market, it's a market the same way. And I always love to draw my economic model for the youngsters. And we do economic sermons at Essex House, and
That's
so
right.
we watched Crash Course economics with the boys a couple years
So
ago.
fun. It's so good.
And I was like, they've got my favorite model. And they showed, where you've got the individual on one side and you've got the business on the other side, and connecting the two. And it made like a circle or like a cycle. So from business to individual, that's the product market, right? And so the individual pays the money to the business and then gets the product. On the bottom of that loop, you have the labor market where the individual produces services or labor for the business, and then the business gives them the money. So in both directions there's a transfer of money, and in both directions there's a transfer of goods or services, right?
Yeah.
And then the government's in the middle, and it just takes something from everything,
I will have a piece of all the pies.
right?
Give me those
So
scratches.
if that's our macroeconomic picture, um, and you're still working from a market, what you are still doing is you have to sell. It doesn't matter if you're on the product side or on the labor side, you got to sell.
Yeah,
And so, what is it that you're selling? That's your offer. That's your trade agreement. If I give you this labor, then you will give me these gold coins, right? And most people are like, "Oh, I don't want to go into sales." Well, if you don't have a job right now, you in sales.
great.
E. So your offer isn't just, oh, here are the skills that I have, right? Your offer is this is the outcome I can produce for you. So the more, and this is why I call it the C economy, is because everything is shifting. And your economy is more like archipelagos than than Pangea or continents. And for a very short period in our economic history, you had big companies that a bunch of people would go and work for. But for the vast majority of economic history, people were freelancers, right? My father was a blacksmith, and his father before him, and his great grandfather was a blacksmith. He invented the ball peen 500 years ago, and today I am the the last in a long line, and one day, son, this blacksmithing empire could all be yours. And that's how it was for like thousands of years of human existence.
How trades perpetuated as they were taught to the apprentice or the child. That's how we still know how to do those skills.
Right. And so what happens is you used to have this micro apprenticeship happening at companies where, the senior person would take in, a bunch of junior people. So you've got like your FPA director, financial planning and analysis director, who then has like a bunch of junior analysts, and those junior analysts just like do all of the grunt work. Well, now you can go and do all that lifting yourself. You just like chat GPT it, and or actually Perplexity, because that'll give you better research than your chat GPT will. Just saying. So you get on your internet and you can figure out most of what you need to in a basic search, and you don't need the analyst to do it, because now what you have is a mid to senior level person who can do all of the work of the junior analysts, and then they just automate it with their little N8N workflows, or whatever. You get a little bit of technical savvy as a mid level or senior, and you don't need a bunch of junior analysts anymore. And pretty much everything has data in it. So you don't really need, a specified analyst. You need one analyst to handle pretty much all the tasks that used to be like an entire floor of juniors.
Which feels nuts, but is very accurate.
Yeah. So go
Can
ahead.
I say something that's a little bit of a tangent that I saw today?
Tangent, hit me.
And I had no idea if this was true, and I haven't had time to research it. Is that we are one of the few developed or democratized countries where layoffs are a thing that are produced by like just numbers, that in many other countries you can't just lay off workforce if they are producing work, whether or not that like benefits your company. Like you can't just replace workers with AI. You have to have just cause. There's laws against like layoffs, but we don't have those in this country. So mass
So
layoffs don't like exist in other countries.
yeah, so a big chunk of my company is in Mexico, and so that is the case. And think about it more like, what is it like? Um, oh God, I'm blanking now on what it's called. It's not right to work. It's at will employment, right? So it's like the opposite of at will employment, right? You need a reason to fire somebody. And not every state is an at will state, by the way.
I mean, not.
No,
Okay.
a lot, but not all of them.
Okay.
Um, so if you are not in an at will state, then you need to have a good reason to fire somebody. Um, and this is something that is a little corporate politic move. Is sometimes they'll just like tell you that you're not meeting performance, and they'll tell you this like two or three times with no real evidence, just so that they can say that we've told them that they're underperforming as an excuse to fire you.
Oh,
um
yeah.
yeah. And what it really is fuck, we can't get them off the books, but we can't afford to keep them, so let's find a convenient excuse to get them fired, you know so we get that money, in the next quarter, which is not awesome. But you don't necessarily also want to tell your employees, actually, we're struggling for money, you know? So,
Mm,
all things considered, how do you then make sure that you always have a job? This is back to the offer creation and lead generation. So your offer is going to say, what can you do for me? WWIFM. What's in it for me? So if you have a good offer, well, it used to be, oh, well, I've gone through this institution. It's been accredited. I've been accredited. Look at all of my certifications, lands, and titles. I have alphabet soup behind my name, you know? And that was how people did it. And then you all spoke the language. You passed
yep.
the secret handshake, you
You
know?
passed all the checks.
Yeah. But then you got a bunch of dumbasses who knew the secret handshake but couldn't get their job done.
Oh,
Yeah. And so now people are like, show me receipts. And that is why the portfolio beats the resume. Your resume is essentially like an advertisement. Like, here, look at this. I can do this. I can do this, for low, low prices, you know?
yeah.
And then what people are negotiating based on sight unseen. And then you have companies that are like, okay, well, we need to make sure we're not getting a bunch of, slackers who are just really good at pitches, right? And
Yeah.
interviews. And so they start concocting these elaborate tests, right? Like these FANG companies, these big tech companies, they just like, it's like a gauntlet or like a bunch of math problems. And it's like, does all of that stuff actually tell you if you've got the right employee? Or are you just like creating people who game the system because, they're really good at taking tests?
I mean, it's
You
probably
know,
both, right?
it's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
So what you want is to show somebody, here is some of my work sample. Here's what I've produced. And it's a lot harder to counterfeit. So
Yeah.
that's the problem that hiring managers have is that they've got too many applicants and they need to eliminate large swaths of them because, like, I've only got like 5 positions, but I got 5,000 applicants. How am I going to sort this? What's something that stands out to me? And if we're going to make this hiring decision, because it costs money to hire you and it costs money to fire you. So
Yeah.
if we're going to hire somebody, we've got an overabundance of supply and we need to find who's going to be the best person and and make them make them a competitive offer because there's only so many of them. And if they go to the next guy, who knows when I'll find somebody else with that same level of skill, so we gotta we gotta look at what they've done, portfolio.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you know somebody, be like, look, this guy, he's a freaking genius. You got to get him in. Here's I can vouch, right?
And that's even better, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Because they've worked with somebody's worked with you, and this is the testimonial, and people are all about social proof, right? Like the more other people have validated you, vetted you, the easier it is for somebody else to accept you, which da-na-na-na, gets us to our main topic of the podcast: bid, barter, banter.
Yes.
So, and this was great because I showed this to our 12-year-old and he got it. He got it.
Right?
I'm gonna brag a minute. This
Yeah.
kid, this kid was driving me cuckoo bananas. I was like about to start throwing coconuts, at his head. Um, but because having a conversation with him was like pulling teeth and like he didn't want to say anything And when he like you would talk to him and he wouldn't talk back, and you talk and then he's like looking all the way around the room and I'm like, yo, my eyes are up here. And I'm like, I feel like a large-breasted woman talking to him. Hey, my eyes are over here, buddy. You know? Um,
Yeah.
but or like what was that movie Up with the Doberman squirrel?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so he has been reading, he has been speaking. I passed him on a charisma check earlier today,
Mhm.
for just using his words to say excuse me.
That was
Like,
great.
oh man, that's it. I don't say sorry very much, but like excuse me is like the best phrase ever. Excuse me works when you've done something and you notice that you're impolite. It diffuses like all of these conflicts before they even start.
Yeah,
Um,
there's so much good in that phrase. It does a lot.
right. If you learn like three things in any language, it's please and thank you. I'm rolling that into one. Where's the bathroom? And
Yep.
excuse me.
Yeah, big time.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whew. Yeah. So those those things got us to dissecting communication, and we were trying to I'm trying to troubleshoot to build our relationship up, but I'm also trying to figure out why are we having such a disconnect. And part of it is an experience that I had with my dad, who's a rocket scientist, and it's hard for him to
No, for sure.
condescend to like the level of us mortals, to talk about stuff. But he's also really excited to tell you about it, but
Yes,
he's also
totally.
not that great at teaching it to you, right?
Also, yeah.
So you end up listening and he ends up telling because he's basically doing show and tell, right? And like, look what I made, look what I could do, look rocket go boom, and it's like, oh, and he's very entertaining,
Because
but
he's
at the
very
same,
excited and animated and enthusiastic about the whole thing.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And so like he's like a 70-year-old kid, you know. He gets so excited about rocket ships and like globes and space, and he's got so many like little models of spaceships and globes on his
And when
desk.
you
And
say it like that, it's quite sweet.
yeah, yeah. I'm also very happy for him because he's doing what he loved. And when he was closer to my age, he was more frustrated, with his work stuff. And so I'm happy for him to be doing something that he loves instead of doing something that he kind of has to do because he's good at it, you know?
So proud of him, which I love. It's very
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah. And so, I want to make sure that I'm having a good connection and I'm not just doing show and tell. Um, or like I'm not show and tell too much and I'm not lecturing too much and I'm not just venting, that I'm actually having a generative exchange, a cooperative exchange, you know?
Mhm.
And so bid barter banter is the framework for all communication. That's
Yes.
that's basically it. And I challenge you to a duel of cooperative dialogue. But find a circumstance where this doesn't end up being the case, where you really only have three moves, and those are the bid, the barter, and the banter. Bids are you making your offer, right? Offer and ask, and your barter is where you define and renegotiate terms and conditions, guarantees, things like that. And banter is where you essentially build trust with the other person, by mitigating their risk.
Mhm.
Now, most social interactions are banter, right?
Yeah.
Small talk, 100% banter. 100%, right? All banter.
Yeah.
And I tend to hate small talk because I want to I want to get in. I want to know who am I dealing with?
Yeah.
Who are we? Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's
You
crack
like a
open your
meatier
brains,
conversation.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but I saw or I yeah, I saw a little short for a podcast that I like called Diary of the CEO. Man, I like the British guys.
Me too.
I feel like they do I think they do really good entertainment in general.
Totally. Totally.
It's not for all Americans, but I like it. It's for this
What was
America.
that other one that you liked that I got into? There was like a British guy and a German guy.
Podcast
Maybe.
or a TV show?
Maybe it was a YouTube, but I felt like it was a podcast. The like two dudes, the two British,
Can you
the Russian dude, maybe one of them was Russian and one of them.
Oh yeah. So they're the was it trigonometry? I
Yes.
was into those guys for a minute.
Yeah, that
And
one.
what is it? Konstantin Kisin, and
Yes.
he's like a Russian Brit.
Yes.
And oh God, I'm blanking on the other guy. Francis somebody. But they were both comedians. They're both British comedians.
Yeah.
And Francis Foster, maybe. Do they both have double double syllable names or double
I'm gonna look
letter
really quick.
names? Um, but
Trigonometry.
I don't know. Those guys are funny, and they became more politically active commentators than comedians, because that seems to be like the pipeline now, right? Joe
Right.
Rogan starts this trend of, you know, going from comedian to political commentator. Um, I don't know
You
why
were-
that's a pipeline.
Yes, you were 100% correct. Konstantin Kisin and Francis Foster.
Okay.
Well
Yeah.
done.
And I mean, I like their humor. You know, they got a great sense of
Me
humor.
too. Yeah,
And then
me too.
like they just got so fucking serious. And they're like, I'm like, oh my God. You know, everybody's like, this is the movement. And I was like, okay, well, it's not super funny anymore. But you're right. I really liked how these guys operated, and they had, you know, smart things to say.
And they,
Um,
yes, it was a good time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about bantering, I was watching this short by this lady who was talking about communication, and it was so funny to me because it was like, she just outlined my entire or well, a portion of my communication strategy, which she uses a pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid, it's things that everybody knows, right? Like a anybody, everybody. The
Yeah.
middle is things that are in like your group, and then the top is something that's only shared between the two of you. So
Oh, yeah.
small talk then is mostly just banter in the bottom of that pyramid of things that everybody knows.
Right.
And so it's really easy to have these kinds of conversations, right? This is why people talk about the weather. This is why people talk about how about them Seahawks, you know.
Right.
It's just like, oh, okay, what's a thing that just kind of everybody knows that's going on in the cultural zeitgeist?
Yeah.
Well, as our interests have fractionated, largely because of the internet trying to customize and curate you and the monoculture, moving from, I would say, one of American patriotism, you know, from like I feel like that sort of was the you know, World War II all the way to like 2010. And I
Yeah.
feel like kind of transition happened. And maybe it's like more like it was a more gradual change, but it felt the most predominant when it fully transitioned. And this is what, the conservatives call wokeism. But it was like the peak of when the transition to of the mainstream culture being, one of America's the best country ever,
Mhm.
um, to this sort of we are apologetic for our existence because Americans are inherently colonizers and we've, sort of ruined the rest of the world, and we need to, you know, pay more attention to women and minorities and less attention to powerful white men, and like this sort of like I'm packaging these as components of, what this cultural set of norms, values, and beliefs are, right?
Yeah.
And before then, it was mostly like Judeo-Christian values, right? And so the transition was basically as the church declined in favor, that created a vacuum, and the state came in and said, we will do political movements. And so, in so many ways, political ideology became the replacement for religious ideology, which,
Yeah.
pit themselves against each other as conservatives and progressives, right? And the progressives said, no, we focus on political ideology. And the conservatives said, no, we focus on religious ideology. And so, there's also a class stratification there. Um, a lot of the wealthy folks with access to luxury beliefs, are like, oh, let's go and help those poor people over there, not having really any idea of what those poor people over there are actually experiencing or what kinds of interventions will actually help them. So, but at the same time, it's like, hey, now, we don't look at gay people and question them quite so much. It's like, oh yeah, do you boo. It is the you do you boo. We
Yeah.
are we are from this one tribe, and the tribe says if you wish to do it, then you can do it, so long as it does not impact me in a negative way. You do you boo, right? So I love the Yudu tribe, right? Anybody can just let your freak flag fly. I lived in San
Yeah.
Francisco, and man, I saw some freaks and they were flying their flags,
I
right?
mentioned.
And I'm
Yeah.
all for it.
Yeah.
However, can you lift, bro? That's what I want to know. And
Yeah.
so this is the rub where I don't think either ideology quite has figured this thing out, which is why we're talking about communication so much, is because this culture war, this fractionation has created so much polarity, so much difference that people don't know how to talk to each other anymore, right?
I know. Which is such a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of these macroeconomic, socio-cultural trends, religious, ideological trends, economic trends, right? Pest, political, economic, social, technological,
Yeah.
all happening. And in order to create the innovation, that's where you work on the communication. So let's start. Let's start backwards and work our way forward. You start the conversation with banter, and you generally end the conversation with a bid, right? Um, because if you make your offer up front, then that can be considered rude, depending on the culture. And most cultures will generally like give give you the pitch at the end.
Right.
Um,
Turn you up first.
they got to warm you up because the trust build phase is the banter. So we'll start back we'll start it backwards. Begin with the end in mind. So the bid is the if I give you X, then I get Y. So we looked at again Baldur's Gate, which is the D&D clone, um, and you've got my inventory, your inventory, and then the table. So this thing is happening regardless of whether or not you mean to. It's happening subconsciously. It's happening everywhere. It's just like gravity, but it's invisible to a lot of people. And it's the transaction layer of all conversations. And no matter what, even if you think, oh, this conversation isn't transactional, want to bet?
It is.
You ask a question, any question. Hey, where are you from? That is an ask by definition.
Yeah.
So, what are you asking? I have to provide you with information,
Yep.
right? And even before that, I have to give you my attention. Whew. So all communications are at minimum a bid for information or attention.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Not everybody has attention in their inventory. As a matter of fact, in the politically charged, phone charged, digitally charged, virtual ass world that we happen to inhabit at this particular juncture, right? Everybody is attention drained,
Yeah.
right? And
That's a
so
resource that's in short supply, ironically.
and so people are exhausted from paying attention to their phones, from paying attention to their screens. And you also have the ability to pause, scroll, next, control, and curate that experience for yourself to your exact preferences. But you can't do that when you're talking face to face with another human being who may have an equal or greater power level than you do.
Ooh, yeah.
Yikes. That's why people are more rude now than they used to be. Is the yeah, it's the phones. Everybody knows this, but they don't quite know why this is. Like some brain science. You don't need the brain science, man. Just like cause and effect. So if you practice over and over and over again, listening to people talk at you and then pausing them, muting them, multitasking, swiping past them, and then you now come away from that anonymity environment and you're like, oh shit. I don't know how to read body language. I don't know that it's 60% body language, 30% voice and intonation, and 10% words. And then you're like, well, I said this. And it's like, you said it with your words, but your voice said something completely fucking different. So I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have people that are more disagreeable. They're being more rude, and a large part of that is just because they're unpracticed with talking to other people now.
Yep.
Um, and it's hard once you've developed a sweet tooth to eat broccoli because your palate's changed.
Yeah.
So when you're having that bid stage, you've got to figure out what's in somebody's inventory. And the more bids you make, generally speaking, the more annoyed the other person gets with you and the more eager they are to end the interaction.
Yeah.
So the more bids, generally speaking, the less the worse the interaction tends to go.
Yeah.
So in negotiation, we have BATNA, which is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This tells you what's the price at which I'll walk away, right? If
Yeah.
I don't get over this amount, I'm going to bounce
Yeah.
because I have this other thing that'll cover me, right? This is pace planning. Again, one thing, 10,000 things. If you've got four different options, then I can walk away if I don't get what I need from the first.
Right. Because you've got contingencies in place.
Right. And you get that from having a bunch of leads already available to you. That's
Yeah.
the network component of network portfolio resume. You want to have your offer. What am I going to provide to you? What am I putting on the table? right? To make it worth your while to continue to have this conversation with me,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And then does this person even have what I need? Budget, authority, need, and timing. Are they a qualified lead? Qualified means that they can give you the thing that you want. Because a lot of the time, people will ask you over and over and over for something, and it's like, I don't have it.
Right?
Talk. Tell me what you know. I don't know, bro. I don't know. And so what?
Yeah.
You're going to just torture somebody until they give you the answer that you want to hear, even if they don't know for sure?
I mean, sometimes, yeah.
That's what a bad salesman is. Right? They're trying to convince you to buy something that you can't afford.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then your ZOPA is your zone of probable agreement, possible agreement, right? Where, okay, this is something that they have. This is something that I have. We both put it on the table. Now, the question is the price too steep? Yeah,
Mm,
I can technically afford it, but how much is it going to hurt? Right?
yeah,
So is the cost worth the benefit? And if the ROI isn't high enough, then you might still not have that deal. You might not make that trade.
yeah,
So that's all communications is you're always trading something. And whereas a lot of the time folks get emotional about something, and then they're like, well, I want to win.
mhm,
Well, no, you're trying to agree. You win a conversation by agreement or
right?
by, well, we can't make a deal here, but we can still be friends. That win win or no deal is what I think a lot of people miss in conversations. To them, a win is I've gotten the better of you and you didn't get the better of me. And that
Right.
kind of zero sum thinking is not helpful, not constructive in most negotiations. But you know what? People do it all the time.
I
People
say
do
you're
it at low
right. Most
levels.
people think about it that way. Yeah. Even
Yeah.
if it's not conscious, even if it's a subconscious thing, that's how most people are operating.
Yeah. And so that takes us to the barter, which is another thing that will generally decrease your relationship standing with the other person. So how crazy? Bid, barter, and banter are your three moves, and two of them, the more you do it, the worse your outcomes are going to be. Right?
Yeah.
If you're constantly asking, pestering for somebody, to give you something, right? You're constantly bidding. Well, they are like, God, this guy's annoying as shit. Go away. And if you're constantly bartering, changing the terms and like, well, what if I raise the prices on you? What if I made this? Now you've got to keep track of all of the renegotiations. Well, what does that mean? Right? Well, what happens if you void the deal? Right? What happens if one of us can't deliver, doesn't deliver? Right? What if we break our promise? Right? What if I do the thing first and then you're going to do the thing second and I do my part and you don't do your part? What if you tell me that you can lift that side of the couch and then we go to lift the couch and you're like, "Oh, it's heavy. Do you want to just carry most of it?" What? What?
Yeah.
So this is the sort of part why people don't like lawyers. So if the first one is why people don't like salesmen, because salesmen are always pitching you, right? People don't like lawyers because lawyers are constantly talking about terms and conditions and renegotiating the terms of the contract,
Yeah.
right? So we tend to not like those people or tend to not like these professions because we don't know how to play their games.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we go into it feeling outmaneuvered and like we're going to get swindled.
Yeah. I'm gonna shut up for a minute, Aaron, let you talk because I feel like I just talked for this whole hour and you didn't get a word in edgewise. I'd like for you to add some color to these first sections of the bid barter banter.
Oh my goodness. I don't really know what color to add. You know what's ironic? Why I don't
Mm.
know what color to add is because you and I have been having so many conversations recently about functional communication.
Mm.
So, like, so I came into this podcast knowing this is what we were going to talk about, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I saw it on paper. You drew it out. You've mapped it out for me. We've been talking about it with the kids. I was like, great, let's explain it to the people. And you just did. And most people don't think about casual conversation this way. And this podcast is like, on the one hand, it's a good practice round because I come into it knowing what the goal is, right? We always talk
Hmm.
ahead of time about what we want to talk about and the main point that we want to get across. Even if we meander on our way there, we both know where we're aiming, and usually we've had a conversation or two about it ahead of time. And so the podcast feels very shared goal oriented, which is
Mm.
great. I struggle, I think, with all these things in regular day-to-day conversation, not because I'm not good at them, but because I often miss the cues about where we are in the sequence. I
Mm.
love to hang out in banter.
You banter
Love
very
it.
well.
Thank you. I love to hang out there. I love to take my time. I like exploration. I like the long explanation. I like the story. I like the build up to the punchline. You know what I mean? I'm
Hmm.
into all of that, but sometimes there's not time. And I'm like relaxed when you're not, because you're on a deadline or you're moving. And I'm like trying to hang out with you. And you're like, oh, I would love to hang out with you, but we need to address five different things on this list. And I have 15 minutes in which to address them with you. And I either didn't pick up the cue or we started something that felt bantery or
Hmm.
felt like we were going to explore, but you were like, actually, I was just making a note of something that I noticed, and we can come back to it later, but I don't have time to explore right now. And I didn't catch where it was going. So I think, like you said, a lot of people struggle to do this well, largely because they're out of practice with in-person communication. Because the other thing is, online, not only can you curate it however you want, but you can impose a mic drop whenever you want. You say the thing that you think is the end, and then you're like, I'm going to post the comment and then block them.
That, oh
So
my God, that annoys the shit out of me.
well, I don't have to ever receive a response. I have won the game and ended the show. I had the big finale, and then I blocked them because they don't deserve my attention anymore. And meanwhile, the conversation is likely continuing on without you, and you didn't have the mic drop, and then people are like, well, that idiot just bounced because they didn't have the stones to stay in the conversation or whatever. And you were also like telling your friends about the big victory you had on someone else's wall. Or I've seen this before too, where people are like, I said my mic drop and then I blocked them, but they screenshot their own mic drop and then post it as a
Oh
screen
my God.
for people to see. So watching people communicate in this manner, I kind of feel like a spectator. I've got my little popcorn and I'm just like, I don't like to participate in online debates or online. I don't really like to communicate online because of these maneuvers. So I
Yeah.
much prefer to spectate as far as online communication goes, which in some ways I think has served me in in-person communication because I haven't developed a ton of negative habits from only communicating online.
Hmm.
But it is interesting when you start to drill down into what conversation actually is and how to be effective at it. And there's lots of books and there's lots of reading and all that stuff, but mostly I think when people talk about effective communication, a lot of the times what people want out of that is less like task oriented and more intimacy oriented. And when they say, I want to be with someone who's an effective communicator, they don't necessarily mean I want a partner or a friend who is technically effective at communication. I want a partner who makes me feel good when I communicate with them,
Exactly.
that I
That's
enjoy communicating with.
yeah. I want somebody that I like talking to.
Whether
That does
or not
not
it's
necessarily mean you're an effective communicator.
correct, whether or not it's functional. They're like, I want what, so when people say I want an effective communicator, what they really tend to mean is on an intimacy level, I want
Mhm.
someone that I enjoy communicating with.
Which typically means I want to communicate with somebody who communicates to me exactly in the narrow channel that I want it to be given. Which is why we have so many icks, right? We have, and so what did I say? Preferences are evidence of luxury beliefs. Because it's like whenever you prefer something, it's like, well, what if it's not available? Can you get by with the like crappy version? Right?
Right?
Like you don't need to eat like really fancy food. All you need is like can of beans. Like, but do you want to eat a can of beans?
Probably
And
not your
that's it?
preference.
Like, hey, oh, my food budget's so high, can of beans.
Yeah.
And I said
There's
that I
always ways, there's always ways to reduce if you're willing to cut your preferences.
yeah, because that's what preferences are. Is they're an indication that you have options and you have stratified those options so that one thing is preferable to the other, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have options, you can't have preferences.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, would I prefer to like roll up in a Porsche 911? Oh hell yeah. But my budget suggests otherwise. It says, "Oh, well that is a nice preference that you do not have, sir." I don't know why my internal monologue is a Kentucky old man.
It's
It's
like
Colonel Sanders.
when you do that voice, I think of the little Monopoly man.
Oh yeah.
You know, the like guy with the monocle and the top hat. Like when
Yeah,
you do,
but he's from Kentucky. And
oh,
my,
okay.
my grandparents were from Kentucky, so maybe that's why I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. You know, and I
But
see it in their derby outfits.
right. So let's finish off the bid barter banter to pick up on that because you know all of those things about examples of people not communicating well, of having like a very narrow channel of what they'll accept in terms of communication, inbound communication, not knowing how to effectively produce outbound communication. So what is the point of banter? And I think this is a really big kicker. So whereas that lady on the podcast was talking about this triangle, in terms of how to have small talk lead into deeper conversation, it's also the thing that we talked about, I think, last week, which is why we keep secrets, which I got into even further. So, if banter is designed to build trust and share information, right, by mitigating risk, well, I drew two graphs. So, actually, before I get to the graph, I drew the triangle, right, of the everyone knows to only you know, right,
Mhm.
at the bottom and top. But this also corresponds to the information security pyramid or hierarchy, where you have public at the bottom, then private in the middle, and then secret at the top.
Yeah.
And so the graph shows a direct correlation between secrecy and risk. But that risk is perceived risk. So if I feel a risk to my body status or ego, then I am more likely to withhold information,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And this is why people freak out at pop quizzes, right? We talked about this, is that a pop quiz puts you on the spot, and now you have to do a fast risk assessment. And
And
if
people
you,
would rather not.
so what, have what or not?
And people would rather not.
Yeah, they'd rather not. We had this conversation on the couch with the kid. We said, "Look, I'm trying I was because what was I doing? I was creating a decision criteria. So I had four possible we were doing strategy for next year, next quarter. And so I was like, here are the four potential projects that I can work on in Q1 of 26. And so the first three were like new projects, and then the fourth one was business as usual. And we wrote out what are the pros and cons, right? Cost benefit in terms of money and time and
Then we like mathematically scored the whole grid.
right. So we now came up with this score, and I was like so mad because I'm a maximizer. And so I my gut was like, go for the thing with the highest possible payout. It does not matter what it costs. We will make it so. Right.
Right?
And,
And I feel
and,
that. Emotionally, I feel that.
and then, what ends up having the highest ROI was actually the lowest benefit, but also the lowest cost. And so
Math Mathematically speaking, an option was a very clear winner.
it was very clear. It was like, yeah, it was
It
like
wasn't close.
60.
It was like
Yeah. It was double. It was more than
double.
double the previous score. And I was like, God damn it. Because the maximum benefit one was also the most expensive of all possible options.
Yep.
Yeah,
Did it score the lowest?
it
The one
did.
we wanted the most
What
scored
I
the
wanted the
lowest.
most scored the lowest.
Of course.
And so my gut was like mad, and I was like, what? I'm still mad about it. Like it was like days ago, and I'm
I
still
know.
like,
And you still haven't fully accepted the decision that we made because you're still
I
stuck
have,
in
I
an.
have, I've accepted it in my mind, just not in
Okay.
my body,
Okay. I get it. I get it. I get it.
because we sweetened the pitch. Remember?
That's right. We did. And that was better. I felt better
Yeah.
about
So I added some additional benefits to make myself feel better about the decision that didn't cost very much. So it's still the highest winner, and it still has you know the best ROI, but I added some relatively low cost actions that would have enough benefit to put it into my like acceptable range.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I explained this to the kid because I was asking him, I was like, hey, what's this math, right? Make this calculation. And then he's like, what? Because, he got his video games back and he was distracted. And I said, I want to let him play. It's a weekend, so I want to let him play. But at the same time, I'm like, boy, you got to be able to do a simple division problem. Come on now. And so he stopped, and he said, I don't know. And I said, okay, so here we have an incongruity. The incongruity is between what you said and what I know to be true. I know you have done this kind of math problem before because I've helped you with it. And because it is way more advanced than the kind of math that you're doing already. So why did you say, I don't know? And then he was just like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, I think I know why you say I don't know. This is my hypothesis. Tell me if it sounds about right or if it feels right to you. He said, okay. I said, I think when the calculation is hard or harder than you want to devote resources to now, then you just evade or defer the question. And he's like, yeah, it tracks. And I said, I think you were busy and you wanted to basically get back to what you were doing. And
And
if you gave me the I don't know answer, you wouldn't have to, then you could get back faster.
you know what it is? It's twofold. And you were totally right about him. And for most people, it's number one, being put on the spot and they don't want to do that calculation that fast. And the second
Hmm.
part is when they feel put on the spot, they don't feel like they got an opportunity to opt in. They didn't agree to
Oh,
go on this conversational path with you. You just dragged them onto it. And they're like, but I didn't agree to this. So whether or not I can do the calculation, I haven't said yes.
yeah,
So to be people want to give their permission for everything that happens to them, which is not
yeah.
possible. But they're either surprised and they feel like they can't do the risk calculation, or their brain hasn't quite caught up. If they were distracted or tired, and then you wake them up with something and put them on the spot, they're like, oh, it's safer to say I don't know because I don't want to do the calculation that quick, or I don't feel capable of it. Or they're like, wait a minute. I didn't agree to this. I don't
I
want to.
didn't give you my consent to ask me questions.
Correct. So they're like, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not going to participate, or I'm not going to answer, even if I know the answer, just because I didn't agree to participate. So
Right.
yeah, and people don't like it. But what's funny is we got him there. He was like, yeah,
Hmm.
you're right about that. And he totally understood. And then the next day at dinner, I asked you something and you said, I don't know. And then you turned to the kid and you were like, why did I say I don't know just then? And he goes, I don't know. And you're like,
And
you
I
remember
said,
last night? It's because I can do the calculation, but I don't have the bandwidth or the time to do it right now.
correct, correct. And so, because I wanted to demonstrate that I'm not just holding a double standard on him, that
Yeah.
I don't know isn't an answer that he can produce. I want him to learn to use his mind because
Yeah.
I'm not using my mind because I used it all day and I'm ready for it to turn to power down, right?
Yeah.
And whereas he was just hanging out and chilling all day, you
Right.
know, congratulations, here's your opportunity.
Yeah, and everybody does run out of steam,
Yeah.
eventually. So,
So the last component then is basically this syllogism, right? The greater the risk, the greater the secrecy, right? That's the first graph. And then the next one is trust comes from reducing perceived risk, and the greater the reliability, the greater the trust. So the second graph is a direct relationship where you have trust on the vertical axis and reliability on the horizontal. So if you want to decrease secrecy, then you have to decrease perceived risk. And
mhm.
if you want to increase trust, you have to increase perceived reliability.
Yes.
And the way that you do that is with receipts. That's the portfolio. Your portfolio is your promise, I call it PKP, your promise kept percentage. And
Yeah.
the more promises that you keep, the more reliable you are, which
Yeah.
goes back to the thing that we said earlier of social proof. If a lot of people have vouched for you or have seen you do a thing, then, oh, I don't have to do the calculation anymore. I can just go off of somebody else's validation and their opinion I will use as my own.
Correct.
However, here's the rub, and this is what I told the kid, is that you've got your gut reaction, and I actually gave him two options. You get your gut reaction, you get your calculation. My gut chose the worst of all possible outcomes, but the calculation gave me the best, and it was the best by a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I said, this is why you get these bad outcomes that you don't like, is because you're using your gut for everything. And I'm not saying your gut is always wrong, but I'm saying if your gut is uncalibrated, right, based on reality, then you will make bad gut decisions. But if
Yep.
you have practiced and practiced and practiced and you know the thing implicitly inside and out, and if you stop to think about it, you could do the calculation, but your mind is just doing the calculation for you because you have an instinct developed for it, then you go with your gut
Correct.
because your gut will interpret things that maybe you didn't see or calculate, but it's practiced behavior.
Because you've trained.
Right. So he has an unpracticed gut sense, right? Because your gut's like a dog. You train it and it'll do what you ask it to, but you got to
Yeah.
train it, right?
Yeah.
But that training is basically a calculation. So you can pre-calculate or you can calculate on the fly, which is why it's better to enter into a conversation with preparation rather than just doing everything on the fly. And if you're out of practice, go practice on some place with really low risk. And that's what we told him too, is we are an excellent opportunity for you to practice your communication skills because whereas we will judge you, we will not make you feel bad and bully you because you've done something wrong or stupid.
We're invested in your development and like in you getting better at this. We want you to practice with us so you have better results outside of the house.
Right. And so I told him, I'm showing you this because I want to build trust with you, right? And so the more reliable I am, the more you should, in theory, trust me. But you're perceiving this risk of sharing any kind of information because you think I'm going to get mad or you think I'm going to, and I said, it doesn't matter if I get mad. It's just, I'm not, do I treat you unfairly if I'm angry? And he's like, no, but it's not very pleasant. I was like, fair enough. But, look at the information that's presented to you, not just how this person is making me feel. And now what you have is the ability to, one, prepare, right? Or two, you are prepared to act in the moment and you now have a greater level of agility and flexibility with respect to the incoming questions. When you're in the dark alley, it's too late to train. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that's a good place to call it. We're over time.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
I always work overtime, so
That's true. You do.
haha. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Good talk.
Good talk. Well done.
Peace.